I want to go back to Canberra now. Joining me live is Independent MP Allegra Spender. Allegra, of course, the independent member for Wentworth, and you in your electorate have the highest Jewish population there. So today is, I imagine, a really difficult day for your electorate, Allegra.
It is a really, really difficult day. This is the day that commemorates, sort of absolutely tragic events in the Middle East where, over 1,200 Jewish Israelis were killed on a single day, the single biggest loss of life since the Holocaust, which was an absolutely tragic day with many people with friends and family there and kicked off what has been a devastating war for the last 2 years. But at the same time, the impact in Australia has also been profound. And I think this has been the start, this marks the start of, I think, 2 years of the biggest rise in anti-Semitism that the Australian Jewish community has ever seen. And I speak constantly to members of the Jewish community who do question whether they are still welcome here. And that has really been kicked off over the last 2 years. So this is a really tragic, it is a really tragic day.
Who do they point to? Is a lot of the criticism levelled at the Prime Minister?
I think every community has a range of views, and there certainly is, criticism of the government and others. But I think, I think what people are really concerned about is to say, how do we maintain our social cohesion here? And Australia's not the only country really battling with this. We saw what has been absolutely awful, the attack in Manchester over the weekend. And again, that sort of talks to the greatest fears, I think, that members of the Jewish community have, and frankly, members of Australia, because this country, I think, recognises that we are a multi-faith, multicultural country, a place where everyone is welcome, where all faiths should be able to practice in peace and in security. And so this is not just the sorts of attacks that we saw in the UK and certainly the horrific anti-Semitism attacks that I've seen in my own electorate. Those are the sorts of things that just don't belong in our country. In whatever your views on conflicts overseas, really that's not what it's about. This is about this country and how we hold together.
Allegra, it's been pointed out to me that they just want the Prime Minister to be more forceful when it comes to days like this and planned protests. For example, the comparison has been pointed out to me between Chris Minns saying it's hugely insensitive to have these protests, it's tone deaf, and he went further and further. I think that's pretty consistent with what the Premier has said. Alternatively, we've heard the Prime Minister, condemn it, saying this is not a day for protests. But people see that comparison and think, can't the Prime Minister just be a little bit more on our side? Is that the feedback you get as well?
Again, as I said, you get a range of feedback. I think there is a lot of recognition from the community that Chris Minns has spoken, I think, very clearly. But to be honest, Chris Minns has many more levers at his disposal in relation to the protests because they are state issues. And I think it is really important to say, this is the wrong day. This is not the time that this protest should be happening. And we have a responsibility in this country to each other, to holding ourselves together as a country. And while we can all feel very strongly about what is happening overseas, we also need to say, well, what is actually going to happen? What are the impacts of our own actions, both on things overseas, but also here locally? And I think it's absolutely, I agree with Chris Minns, it's tone deaf and completely culturally insensitive to be trying to do so protests on today. There have been protests throughout the last 2 years. I think today and also Sunday are days where those things shouldn't happen.
And the great irony is that there's a peace deal that Israel has agreed to. We haven't been this close to peace or some kind of form of peace in Gaza for the best part of 2 years. And it just shows that these protesters will protest, I think, no matter what. And that is something that should worry us all. I just wanted to bring your attention to this as well. In Fitzroy this morning, to add insult to injury on this very day, graffiti supporting Hamas.
Look, and that is absolutely foul. And I think this is, it just has no place in this country. Hamas is a terrorist organisation. What we want to see, we are at the moment where peace is possible. And, you know, what I believe we all want to see out of this process is actually long-term peace for Israeli people, for Palestinian people, security and peace, and able for people to move forward. And, you know, this is the moment it's as closest as we've come in the last 2 years to having a process for peace. This is the moment that we need to all be seizing and hoping that in 1 year's time that we can look back at this time and say this was the start of a movement towards peace, which is what I think everybody is seeking.
Allegra, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Laura.